Hello and welcome to this very quick demo I'm going to do on a quite unique cognitive agent. It's a long-running process agent, which means it's going to be the kind of agent that's going to deal with much bigger, more complicated, long-running, like months-running goals they want to achieve. And I'm going to show you how it runs and talk through how Camunda basically makes that work. And the first thing, let's explain what the use case is. So this is an insurance claim. I've built this little website here, all by myself, I promise. And we also have some data behind it, right? So we have, in the back end, we have things like customers, we have employees, we have insurance policies, which is really important. And we have a front end, right? Where we're going to have people make a claim. And then that claim needs to be validated by an agent, first of all. And then someone will sign off on that after validation. Now, that's actually the easy part. The way more interesting thing is long-term injury claims or workers' comp. This is the kind of claim that actually lasts for quite a while because you're constantly paying someone out, potentially forever, for as long as they're sick. So you need to just check up on them. So we've written this process that's basically combining the validation and checkups necessary to keep an eye on how the client is doing. So let's kick that off. So I'm going to start off with adding my name, Niall Green, and my email address. And I obviously would like some worker injury type of claim I have. And I'm hurt and cannot work anymore. Great stuff. I'm going to submit this, and this is going to start a Camunda process. So if I click on that, and eventually it'll spin around. Marvelous. So now the process has begun, and here is the process. Looks kind of simple. Well, it depends on how many agents you've seen, but it's got a bunch of different really interesting aspects I'm going to talk through. So first of all, let's see the instance has started already. So here it is. And we can see that the first agent here is the claim validation agent. Now what it's doing is taking in the request and it's trying to find out, is this actually a customer of ours? Does the claim match? And really importantly, you see here, it's got procedures and requirements because it needs to know exactly what it should do to validate this. And the first thing it's done is request information. And this is actually a sub-process. So if I click down here, this is a reusable sub-process that I can use to ask for information. You can see it sent me an email and it's waiting for me to get back. So let's go and see what it asked me. So here is the email it sent. Dear Niall Dean, thank you for submitting your thing. And please provide the following: identification, details, blah, blah, blah. So luckily I happen to have that hanging around. I'm going to drag and drop these two PDFs. And I'm going to say all info is attached. Cool. And then send that email. Cool. So that's me done. Now what's happening in the process is now waiting for either a response to that email, or if it takes too long, it'll go back to the agent and tell the agent we got no response after a day, and the agent will decide what to do next. This particular scenario, I suspect that it'll pick up that email. It pulls the inbox every I think it's like 5 seconds or something. So now it's picked it up. Now it found attachments were there. So I've got an agent here that's actually going to scan those documents and turn them into text so we can deal with it easier and not have those big documents. And it runs for each attachment. So there's two, so it runs twice. And now we basically go back to our parent. So now that we're back in the parent, you'll see I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of this agent. The agent itself is the sub-process, and it's deciding what happens. So it's like choosing what to execute. And you can see that all the stuff on the left here has lit up because that's all the data gathering stuff. The stuff on the right is when it kind of bothers humans. So you can see here that this is totally automated. It's got all the data it needs. It's queried for me. It's found my data in that repository you saw. It's found my policy. So the idea here is we're making it much easier for the clerk who has to find all of this data manually. And instead, the agent's basically going to gather all that, and it's going to create a report then that this clerk can then look at and then make an informed decision. And you see it's triggered that right there. So show final report. Cool. So we can go in and check how that looks. So this is the internal view. So we saw that the front-end user can send emails or use the page, but you can also invoke sort of local folk. And we see here we have the claim. This is the details that we found, the claim type, the validation that it's actually done. So we can see all the checks that it did. We can see this is actually from the procedures document. And then as we go further down, we see the evidence that's reviewed. the stages, blah, blah. And all this comes down to an outcome. What should we do? We recommend we should do some stuff. So I'm going to, as the clerk, I'm going to say, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And I'm going to approve this. So I'm going to approve claim. I'm going to say, I approve this. It looks good. And then complete the task. Now let's head back. And now you can see that I could have rejected it. And if I did, it would have gone out of the agent's context and gone away. But now it's going to go here. This thing gets quite interesting now. If it was any other type of claim, like, I don't know, some kind of like home insurance or something, it would go here to just do the payout. But because this is a long running claim, what I'm doing is I'm using a task agent here to summarize what's happened so far. Everything about the claim, the communication, everything we know. And then I'm going to pass it into a different agent. Now, this agent's goal is to do checkups on the client. And it's going to basically, over the course of time, it's going to check on the health of the client, if they can go back to work yet, if more payouts are required, how the claim is going. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask me some questions because it needs to find out how I'm getting on. And it's using the same sub-process as before, actually. So we can take a look that it's actually send me an email. And once again, we now have this nice reusable process as a tool. So let's head back here. And I've gotten a new email. Cool. And this one says, hope it finds you well, blah, blah, blah. Now, the agent itself is supposed to ask me specific questions about how I'm getting on, my return to work assessment, how conditions change. And the idea is this is the baseline for how the client is getting on. So me as a client, I'm going to paste just this huge block of text, basically answering those questions about how I'm getting on. And then I'm going to send that back. So what that means is the client then, the agent itself, has got to send those answers, sends those questions, and has kept the answers to those in the context of its memory, right? But as well as that, the big long text thing that we saw, well, that's going to be parsed and then actually shown to a clerk who can get a better understanding of the case of how things are going. So the clerk can make decisions then about how to continue the policy. And that's really important because the more this probably needs to happen maybe once a month or once every couple of months. And that means that we get to keep the context of every answer, which means we'll know if they're getting better over time or if they're doing worse. And in the end, what we really, you can see here, we have the report now. So in this report, we've got our first baseline. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So this is, here's the report. Here's basically the big long thing of text I did, but the agent has broken that into a better report for the client to be able to look into, some assessment and so on, quite a lot of stuff, and some overall assessment recommendations. Now, what I'm going to do is, this is something kind of fun now. I would like them to answer the question again. So we need more information. But I want to say we can ask again in 3 months, okay, and see how the client is then. Cool. So this is really important because most agents cannot wait, not in an excited sense, but they can't actually wait for any periods of time. But in BPMN, I've constructed this really simple little pattern here where the agent gets to decide how long it just waits for. And right now it is waiting for about 3 months, right? So it's triggered this wait calculation thing and it's got a thing, wait for next communication, which the clerk says is going to be in 3 months. So the agent's just going to go to sleep until then. Now, that in itself is kind of a fun thing. But what's more interesting is that the agent is not just going to sleep the whole time because there's a second aspect of this, which is this case update. So this is a message that can come in, and what that can do is it can actually wake the agent back up with new information that might have happened. So for example, we actually need one thing, which is a correlation key, which is this. You'll see why. I'm going to send in a message event into the thing. This is just a really simple front end for that. So I'm going to send a message, and this message is going to be an update on the claim, and it's going to say this person's reported back to work already. This needs to be clarified because if true, their claim could be cancelled. Okay, so now I'm going to send this message. Okay, and it should be sent. We're going to go back over here. And we can see here that it is waiting for one of those two events. Either the timer comes in or a message to wake it back up with new information comes. And hopefully that'll work. The other thing so that's woken the agent back up. Great stuff. The other thing is this, which I like even more. this is a non-interrupting message event that can be triggered no matter what the agent is doing. So this is for specifically when it's waiting. So now it's gone back in, it's got that information, and now it's actually going to ask me a new question. And let's see, I've got an email already. So let's see what it says. It says, I'm writing to you urgently regarding this thing. During our routine monitoring process, we come to the attention that you've returned to work. And then we ask for clarification and so on and so forth. And and we can go back and forth, ask for clarification, do all that sort of fun stuff. But in the end, this agent could potentially run for as long as is necessary, because as long as we hold state and hold context, we're able to do that. But more importantly, being able to run for that long just means that it's much, much easier for the agent to pick up where it left off, because time doesn't really matter for the agent running. It always has the context of everything from the very beginning of the process to the very end of the process. And it's a really nice pattern. And I quite like building these kinds of agents. And Camunda and BPMN is built really well for that. So hope you enjoyed that. Cheerio.